All right, I've got 5 o'clock, so we got a full agenda, so why don't we get this show on the road? Let the record show that Councilman Goolsby is absent. Everybody else is accounted for. Mr. Tullis, will you give us an update on our quarterly goals? You should have a copy of that on your agenda.
Yeah, just kind of same as last meeting. I don't foresee any of the second quarter goals that we're not going to be able to execute this quarter. The ones that are still over from Q1, obviously the police staffing issues, those were addressed at the last council meeting in executive session. And then we're still working with the school systems on having that joint meeting. The issue really came up with what's going on with Enterprise State Community College right now, as they are looking for a new president. And so we're trying to work through some of those issues. And I know Christina and Rayner have been working on the council appointment packets. And I think, one of the first two council meetings, or the two council meetings in May, will have that ready for you to look at and review.
Any questions on our Q2 goals? All right, thank you. All right, if you will, turn with me to our regular meeting agenda. So obviously we'll start with roll call and the prayer and pledge of allegiance, then move to the recognition of Enterprise High School basketball team. So this is something unique, certainly unique to my time on the council. Of course, we hadn't had a state championship basketball team either. So we will be Miss Kay. Where's Kay? Or whoever wants to tell us what we're going to be doing here. So, all right. Well, let me digress a little bit. So we're going to open up in here at 6 o'clock because that's our rules. We have a council meeting every first and third Tuesday at 6 o'clock. So we will open the meeting in here, have our roll call, pledge of allegiance. Then I'll recognize the mayor, and I guess, Tammy, what are we going to do from there?
So, sir, we are going to be a little bit at the mercy of the marching group. So if we kick off, I'll try to communicate from down there. When we kick off, I have no idea how long it'll take us to get here. But as soon as we get preset here, I'll probably come over and let you know that we're set, and then have you come out. I don't know how that's all going to time. So
what time do you think that will be?
The plan was to be here by 6 o'clock.
Okay.
So if it works, the plan was for 6 o'clock. We'll try to keep you updated.
So we'll just pause and wait for you to come get us.
I would do that. Yes, I'll try to stay in communication. And what we'll do is, at least when we'll get here, we'll be getting them all set, getting people seated.
Mm-hmm.
The seating is just for the families. We have markers on the chair and also for the press, seats for the press. But we do have standing spaces for you. We have tape marked. Kay has marked tape on the upper area. So we have a spot for Mayor Turner, Councilman Townsend. What we will be doing is Mayor will be shaking hands. You'll be presenting their certificates. And it's my understanding, Mrs. Rich, that you're going to be reading the certificates. Okay. So so we have the podium set up. You will be at the podium. You'll be to her left. We've got tape marks.
I'll be to her left.
You'll be on her left.
And then where are they going to be?
And they are. You have tape marks too.
Yeah.
It's just like a well-done wedding.
So our names will be on the.
Your names are already on tape right now. So literally, we can put you right in place. And so the podium is a little angled. So that's where you'll be, Mrs. Rich. And then I can't remember who I have on the left and the right to that side, but you are directly to her left. Then those spaces open for the player. So once we feed a player to you, and then Mayor, you'll be directly on the left of the player, and then on the left of that will be Coach Harrison.
So.
Would you like? We can walk it.
Do I? No. We don't have.
I promise you, it is well taped.
Do I have any speaking parts?
You do. Nothing mic'd.
So we just. We just stand there.
No, sir. You have nothing mic'd. Yours will just be, obviously the congratulations, that kind of thing. Mayor, you'll do what I call the grip grin, and then we have photographers there. So all of you, as soon as you have presented it face forward, give each one of them that individual shot, and then we'll call the next name. And I'll kind of be behind the column, feeding the players to you, and we'll just keep eye contact.
So how long do we expect this to last?
I would hope we would be done in like 20 minutes.
Okay.
It should be just what I call a grip and grin, where you're basically saying their name, presenting their certificate, gripping and grinning, meaning you're giving that smile, and then we'll move the kids back. I will try to kind of coach the boys when I go downtown, and also when I pre-position them.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we just like we would if they were coming in here, like we do we want to give them their respect and
Right.
the acknowledgement, but we also need to keep in mind that we have a
Yes, you have
council meeting.
a council meeting.
We will be in session technically.
This is going to have a little bit more pomp and circumstance, I think, just because obviously it's a big achievement. When we conclude with the certificate presentations, like we always do here, we are going to ask each one of you. We have, again, on the steps, numbers and names lined on there. We're going to very quickly get you set up. It's by height, and we'll get a quick group photo. So there's even tape marks on the stairs.
Okay. So we'll do that, and you'll let me know when we're
Yes, sir.
dismissed to come back inside.
Yes, sir.
All right. So then we'll come back
I
inside.
feel very militaristic. Yes, sir. I'll
Yeah.
dismiss you. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So then we'll come back inside, and we'll continue with our meeting. So does anybody have any questions about what we're doing? So we're just following you, basically.
Yeah, I'll be as bossy as I can be, I promise.
Okay.
I think you'll enjoy it. I think they're all really excited. The biggest thing is for us to be able to get all those players down there and kick that off. So we have a little bit of unpredictability.
Okay.
So I would continue your meeting until we kind of come to grab you.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thanks.
We appreciate it.
All right, so we will get that out of the way, then we'll come back in, we will approve our agenda, and then we'll consider consent agenda. So y'all stop me if we want to discuss anything here, but our consent agenda consists of work session and meeting minutes from April 5th, contract billings from Wiregrass Construction, Poly, CDG, Three Notches, Fine Getty, USDA. You should have had copies in the packet that was distributed last week. Travel requests from Engineering, Main Street, and Police Department. Some disposal of, I'm sorry, not a travel request, but request to dispose equipment from the Police Department. And then we will have, the mayor's going to present some extra mile awards, which we were going to do at the last, these are the same ones from last meeting, right, Mayor, that we were unable to do. So those got pushed to this meeting. Then there is a permit street closure request from Main Street Enterprise. And DEBA for the boutique crawl and fashion show. Chief Moore, any issues there? I don't see him, but we'll make sure there's no issues with that in the regular meeting. Then we'll have privilege of the floor and staff reports. Then we'll move into old business. So this was the ordinance that was introduced at last meeting, the Airport Zoning Commission. If Barry, Jonathan, y'all want to come forward? So I would hope by now everybody has had a chance to review this, ask any questions. So just for everybody's benefit, give us a rundown of exactly what we're doing here tonight, just what we're doing tonight.
On all of them, or on all the items, or
on the establishment of an airport zoning commission?
Yes, sir. So since I was brought here as part of city staff, one of the things that I was directed to do is look at our airport and see what we need to do to protect that facility. As you know, we have a very vibrant and active airport now at 5,100 feet, and currently the FAA has approved us to go to 6,000 feet. And I've been working with ALDOT to do some height zoning and zoning around the airport, something the state has been pushing for a while to do. And we've had some issues come up with some developments around the airport, which kind of brought this to the top of the list to go ahead and put in place. But the intention is, we have a joint land use study that's currently going on with Southeast Alabama Regional Planning. One of the things they're looking at is the encroachment of housing and development around airfields and what impacts that has to the airfield itself, and also Fort Rucker and Fort Rucker's mission to train pilots. So there were several things going on, and one of the things we looked at was putting some zoning around the airport that would protect that facility. As you know, there's an economic impact study, and Enterprise was ranked in the very top of economic impact, direct impact, and area impact for what those numbers mean to the region. And currently we're somewhere in that 150 to 200 jobs at Arista, plus all the activity we have with fuel sales and what that means to the city. So what you have before you is basically invoking a state statute with a 2-mile radius around the airport to basically say we have zoning jurisdiction around that airport and protect not just the runway approaches in and out of both ends of the runway, but also a 2-mile radius around that airport. That's what you have in front of you, sir.
All right. Does anybody have any questions of Barry?
So the 2-mile area that's the state statute. So
Yes.
it either is or isn't.
According to city attorney, my understanding is the statute says 2 miles. So that's what we're invoking as a state statute, which is the 2-mile radius.
Yeah, I read the statute and I read our ordinance, and it looked like a lot of the language was copy and paste from the statute, right? So in your opinion, we aren't able to limit it to less than 2 miles, or it's not a good idea, or that?
I don't read it to say we can, and I'm not going to say this is my position on behalf of the city. I'm just going to say my opinion at this point in time is we can't lessen it less than 2 miles. It says 2 miles. It doesn't say up to 2 miles. It says 2 miles.
But now, obviously, when we get down to assigning actual land use within those 2 miles, we can differ from property to property, area to area, radius to radius, however the planning commission and the council decide to do. Right. Okay.
So we're also looking at our long-range plan, Mr. President. So we're updating our current zoning and proposed land use for the city. And we're also looking at this, if y'all decide to move forward with that tonight, to look at a future projected land use for around that area as well, to be incorporated to our long-range plan.
So assuming we do move forward with this tonight, KPS, we've already got them engaged on long-range study. Have we talked with them about helping to, and maybe this is a question for Jonathan, I see him coming forward, but helping us expedite getting this done, because I do know that there's going to be some problems we create here if we hadn't already created them,
Right.
to get things rolling.
As I mentioned the last council meeting, we've already heard from other developers that have gone to the county within that 2-mile area, which is one of the reasons that I thought it was urgent to address. And so reach out to Jason Fondren, who's our contact with KPS, and Glenn Morgan was with me, just so I had somebody else that dealt with that language in terms of what he needed for types of files, CAD files or GIS database files from either E911 or the county, and to help with a zoning map. Could be as early as next week, prior to the planning commission, that we have some draft for the planning commission to consider, but I can't promise that. But he said that he'd do everything to focus on that portion of it, since we have nothing right now and it's hindering development.
So if I remember correctly, the ordinance and the statute requires that we have one or more public hearings thereon before submitting its final report, and the council shall not hold its public hearings or take other action until it has received the final report of such commission. So the planning commission has a public hearing, then they give us a final recommendation report. Then do we hold a public hearing? And we'll have a public hearing like we normally do for any land use changes. Okay. Does everybody understand that process? So what's, practically speaking, what kind of time frame are we looking at here?
30 to 60 days.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess
That's
I think it would behoove everybody to obviously get it right, but to be very intentional and and expedite this to the extent that we can do it and get it right. Okay. Is there anybody else? Sonia, you got anything? All right, thank you, Barry. All right, next agenda item is new business, request permission to seek bids, which is a, Barry, you might want to come back up here. So we've got a CDBG demo project. There's 2 items on here, and then we're gonna look at tearing down the Jug Brown Rec Center. So why don't you handle all 3 of those?
Yes, sir. I'll do them in order. The first one is to seek bids for the demolition of the houses. So we did receive a grant from ADECA CDBG to demolish vacant residential homes that are blight for the city. So talking to David Ewing, which has done these grants before, this is the 3rd series of grants the city has done this, and we found the best way of handling that is to do them in batches of somewhere between 5 and 8 homes per batch. And what he's asking, what he's told me to do to come tonight to ask you for is permission to go out for bids for all the houses. But when we do them in batches, we'll bring them back to you in packages, 5 to 8. We go get bids, we get those prices, we'll come back to you for you to award that contract to that contractor for that batch. So we'll have a series of, 5, 6, 7 type batches of these homes to be demolished. So when we get enough that we feel confident that's enough to go out for bid, we'll get those done, and we'll take care of those. So that's the first item that you've got is giving staff permission to go out for bids to demolish the houses. The second one, and I'll stop for questions on these 2. The second one is part of this is we have to do asbestos and asbestos testing for the homes that we're going to demolish. So once we go out and we get someone that wants to have their residence demolished, what we'll do is we'll add them to the list and fill out the forms. Then we will go in and we want someone there to go in and do asbestos testing to know what we're up against in that house. And that becomes part of the bid package to remove that structure. So what I'm asking also to go and secure a asbestos testing lab or asbestos testing firm to help us through this process for all 45 homes. We'll use the same firm for all the batches for all the homes, but we want to go ahead and get those guys on contract. And all of this is covered 100% by grant for both of those items. So I'll stop for a second for questions.
So if both of these items go as planned, when do we think we can get going?
We've already got, I've heard today we started sending out the forms. We met with David Ewing last week to have a kickoff meeting. We started sending those out, and I think we've got 2. Clay, we had 2 that's already up. 2 today. So I would assume that we would have we'll advertise, get it done in the next 60 days. We'll probably have a batch ready to go for the first package. And where there's not a time limit to have the homes removed by grant, our sense of urgency is to get them all done as quick as we can get enough homes to get the 45 done.
Yeah,
I'd be
we can't
hopeful we
apply
get it
for
done.
another grant until we get this one.
That's right. My hopeful is we get it done this year, this calendar year. Just personal goal.
Okay. Any other questions on the CDBG?
There are a lot of homes that we've identified that have been like burnt or partially burned that we add to the list, and we've got a list of names that we're sending out letters to saying, hey, we've got this grant, we've identified your property as one that might be eligible for it, would you like to be considered? And give them the form, and as soon as they fill it out, get it back to us, then we're ready to move forward, and we'll put them in batches and get them going.
Okay.
The third item that I've got here is part of the demolition portion of the Jug Brown Rec Center is the staff is going to do the demolition in-house to take down that facility and remove the concrete to get it back to just grass for the new construction. However, to do that, it was identified that we have some asbestos inside that building. So I'm seeking permission for you to go out and to get someone, we've already identified where it is, to actually remove the asbestos ahead of us so we can use city staff to remove the rest of the building. So I'm seeking permission for that as well.
Is that going to be is there a lot of asbestos?
The building was built in the 50s and 60s. We've got sections of the building that just needs to be removed. It's not This is very normal for a project like this and a building this size to do. They'll go in there and bag it, cut it if it's pipe joints, and actually we engaged on Poly Engineering to do an asbestos study for that, so we have the report that we can give to the contractors to remove that.
Any questions of Barry on this? I have an unrelated question. It's really more for Billy Powell. Is Billy around? Or if anybody can answer. We're going to have a decommissioning ceremony, right?
That is correct.
I really just wanted to, if we're going to talk about tearing the building down, I want to talk in the same conversation about.
Billy, Tammy, and Kay have been working kind of tirelessly over the last 60 days to try to pull in resources about how the building was constructed, what we're going to do to clean out the building, what artifacts or things that we might want to incorporate and keep into the new or proposed new building, should you move forward with building it, and preserve those memories. And so we've got a plan, but we're working with Barry right now on kind of backing into it. So we need to go through the process so that we know what process we need to go through and permits that we need to have to tear down the building, so that Barry can develop a plan to actually demolish it. And then back into when we need to hold the decommissioning ceremony from that. So everything's kind of predicated on when Barry and his team, since we're doing it internally, can do that. And so if it's 2 months from now, obviously, or 3 months from now, or so forth, then it pushes the date on when we can do that. And then Billy's staff to do the decommissioning, I think he was trying to wait until around fall season was over and those kind of things. So it's still fluid, but
Okay.
we do have a plan.
Yep. Thank you. All right, then we will appoint Alabama League of Municipalities voting delegate. Does anybody have any feedback on this?
I'm planning on going. I can do it.
So you are planning on going? Okay.
If someone else is going.
Is anybody else going? Scotty, you going?
Not right now.
Jonathan, you're not aware of Eugene attending that, are you? Okay. So, I think it would only make sense to allow Greg to be our delegate again. So, Scotty, would you mind making that nomination when we get to that? All right, then we'll have mayor's report, council member comments, and we will adjourn. So, any additions to the agenda for our regular meeting? All right, back to our work session agenda. So, board appointments. Well, appreciate everybody taking their assignments seriously and coming back. So you should see here, and I'll just go down here, so the people without these lists know. But so Eugene is his intention is to nominate Marie Harrison for the Board of Education. Scotty, your intention is to nominate Rhonda Bowerin to continue on the library board. Greg and Bridget for the Zoning Board of Adjustments, Larry Milner for the incubator, and Sonia, you plan on nominating Gwen Gilly to continue to serve on the Zoning Board of Adjustments, right? So, any questions on that? So what we'll do is, we've introduced them, in a public meeting as we plan on doing this work session. We'll certainly do that. So we want to make sure that all of these people have a volunteer form on file. I think we may lack one. I'll make sure you all have those forms in your hand tomorrow, preferably. These will be laid over, be on the agenda. We'll have resolutions for these at the first meeting in May. So that's a good segue into the Waterboard discussion. So one of our goals as a council, as you all know, it was to restructure the water board to have 5 members. Jonathan, you mind, since Eugene is not here, I know they met today. Update us on what occurred in the water board today.
So the water board approved expansion of the water board from 3 to 5 members. I believe there were maybe 2 stipulations on that, and Rainer, you and Beverly worked on the draft language of that, but I think it was to limit it to no more than 1 council person and no city employees to be on the board. And I think that's what's going to come before you to vote on. So that would be the next step, is to certify. And it's an amendment to their articles of incorporation. Is that right, Rainer? So
the water board, we got together informally in our work session. We decided what we want to do. We kind of put it in their court. They've done their legal requirement, what we asked them to do. Ball's in our court now. So will we have something? Do we introduce an ordinance? Okay, so there is a resolution in our packet.
There's 2 of them.
So it's just a simple resolution. So we can introduce this at our next meeting and pass it. And okay. And then we'll have 2 vacancies immediately. But we can start those. Can we align those with the timing of the other board members? Vacant. I think those terms typically start in July, right? Isn't that the way we set that up?
it was June or July. I'd have to go back
Yeah.
and look.
So, but we have some time to. So my recommendation then would be, let me look at our board setup. This is obviously throwing 2 new board members in. So we'll actually have a 3 seats. We'll have, I think it's seat number 1, and then seat number 4 and 5, which will be new. So, I for one think we need to keep continuity, in mind. Attempt if our current board members are willing to attempt to not have 3 out of 5 members to be new, but we can figure that out over the next 2 weeks. So if y'all are okay with that, I'll present y'all with a plan of how to attack that. Is everybody good with that? So if y'all could, over the next 2 weeks, review this resolution, make sure we're okay with that. So we don't need to lay this over. It won't require us to lay it over. We'll have 2 weeks to review it and hopefully pass this at our next meeting. Okay. Any questions on water board or board appointments in general? All right. So I do want to encourage y'all to actually talk to these board nominees so that we can make some good decisions at our next meeting. So looks like we're on schedule here. We've got a request for executive session regarding real estate and legal advice. Any other topics we're going to be discussing? Economic development also, right, John? Yeah, so real estate, legal, and economic development matters. We expect this will take about 25 minutes is what's on the agenda, 24 minutes. So we do not expect to address any other matters in work session, but we will adjourn and convene in our regular meeting where we will take up some of these matters. So I will entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
I was going to put your face on that.
I would have. If you had done that, don't tell me. Starting on our are you gonna call it all into session, do prayer, and then go on out? I think you're gonna go ahead and go through the formalities.
We can, I'll make an executive decision. We'll do prayer and pledge of allegiance after. All right, I've got 6 o'clock, so I'm going to call this regular meeting of the Enterprise City Council to order. Let the record show that all members of the council are present. We're going to do the prayer and pledge of allegiance after we recognize the high school basketball team. So I'm going to turn it over to the mayor. I think we're going to follow the mayor outside, right? So we'll return back in here if you want to stay. We'll return back in here for our meeting. see Father Zach. He's the Catholic priest. He would have a collar on. I'll ask for him. Yeah, according to this. Don't have any waters left. I had to settle for a Sprite.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for bearing with us. As suspected, we would have not had room to do that in this room, so that's why we went outside. So I appreciate you bearing with us. We skipped over our opening prayer and pledge of allegiance. So if you would, please stand with me for open prayer and pledge of allegiance. Is Father Zach here? All right, I'll ask Councilman Paget to lead us in prayer.
Lord, we thank you for this evening. Thank you, Lord, for the blessings that you put upon this city. Thank you for allowing our team to win the championship and this opportunity to celebrate them. Pray, Lord, that your hand be upon these proceedings as we try to do the best for the best of our citizens, the city and our citizens. In your name we pray.
Amen. Please join in pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. All right, Council, you should have your agenda in your packet as discussed in the work session prior. I will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now consider the consent agenda. All matters listed within the consent agenda have been distributed to each member of the council for review, are considered to be routine, and will be enacted by one motion of the City Council with no separate discussion. If separate discussion is desired on an item, that item may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda by request of a member of the City Council. I'll now call for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we'll now recognize Mayor Cooper, who's going to present some extra mile awards to some deserving employees of the city.
Ladies and gentlemen, these are some special awards to some of our employees who have gone that extra mile. Usually, people will write in, send something saying what they have done, and usually it is always a good deed, and maybe helping people in many ways. So we can always say that we have some of the best employees here in the city of Enterprise. So here we will let them know how much we appreciate what they are doing.
In March of this year, Rebecca Viet, I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, went and checked on a high water usage issue for a resident. On arriving and speaking with a resident, Rebecca recommended she should check for a leak. Rebecca checked and there was a leak, and the customer called Alan's office and spoke with him directly and expressed their gratitude for what Rebecca did for her. The customer stated that Rebecca presented in a kind, friendly, and professional manner. Regular City Council and Waterboard Board commend you on your outstanding abilities and remarkable attention that you give to our citizens. You're willing to go out of your way to help them. We're proud to have such outstanding individuals representing our water department.
Rebecca released the extra mile award presented to Rebecca Guyette. The mayor and the council of the city of Enterprise award above and beyond
we can recruit for beds. And we like to submit this to you in the Republic of Appreciation. Thank you.
Rebecca's been with us about 2 years, and prior to her coming here, we had a senior meter reader, and that senior meter reader was going to retire a couple of years. So she took Rebecca under her wing and taught her everything she knew. And Rebecca took right up with her, and was instrumental in learning the system and how it works. And biggest thing is documentation. We do a lot of documentation, and if she doesn't, she hears it from me. But she does a good job. She does a really good job every day, and I appreciate her helping the customers out there because we do get quite a few calls. But she handles it very professionally, and I just appreciate it.
Oh, well. This extra mile award is for Adrian Barnes, Kenneth Johnson, and Adam Buxton. In March of this year, Adrian Barnes, Kenneth Johnson, and Adam Buxton were working the recycling station when a resident came up with some recycling. Upon arriving and speaking with the employees, the resident stated that they assisted him in unloading and sorting items and advising of what he could not recycle. The customer wrote the mayor a letter directly to express gratitude for what Adrian, Kenneth, and Adam did for him. Adrian, Kenneth, and Adam, the City Council, and Mayor Cooper commend you on your outstanding abilities and remarkable attention that you give to our citizens and your willingness to go out of your way to help them. We're proud to have such outstanding individuals representing our public works department.
Adam Buxton. Congratulations. Now we have both the public works director and his assistant, so either one of them can speak for these young men up here.
I just want to thank these guys for what they do. They meet a lot of people in the public, and they help a lot of people when they come up, get the recycling stuff, and they go to the cars and take it, bring it to the recycle bins, stuff they put it in the bin for them. They got a garbage truck out where they take cardboard off, put a garbage truck where we can dump it off and keep all the cardboard together. We send it to the recycle center as well. So they stay out when it's real hot out on that asphalt, so they got a hot job too.
Okay, good. All right. Yeah, I just want to say, Mayor, if I can.
Yeah.
You know, I was impressed when I came to the city a year ago, and I knew our public works group was fantastic. I'm just baffled every day by the professionalism, the dedication that our staff has, to that service first attitude. They always put the customer first. When it's raining, when it's hot, when it's cold, it doesn't matter. When you call, they come running. I couldn't work with a better group of guys. I just want to say thank you all for your service. Again, we want to thank everybody. Let's give one more round of applause.
Thank you, Mayor. Greg, congratulations, guys. All right, council, we'll move on with our agenda. Next item is to consider a permit and street closure request from Main Street Enterprise and Downtown Enterprise Business Association. So I will entertain a motion to approve the following request, which is the Boutique Crawl and Fashion Show event time and date, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Saturday, May 14th, 2022. Street closures from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And the closure area is West College Railroad. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion second. Chief Moore, we good? All right, is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, now is the time of the meeting, referred to as privilege of the floor. This is where anybody who is here tonight that wishes to address the council about any item may do so for 3 minutes. I do want to bring to everybody's attention that we do not have any public hearings tonight. So if there's anything on this agenda that you want to address the council about, now would be the time to do it. We do have an ordinance to discuss, but there will not be a public hearing. So this is the public comment time. So is there anybody here who wishes to address the council? All right, Ms. Mills.
Honorable Mayor Cooper, Enterprise City Council members. Hello, my name is Julie Mills,
And I'm Joey Barrett.
and we're here to represent Enterprise Pickleball. Y'all say? Pickleball is currently the fastest growing sport in America. Y'all want statistics? We got them. Estimates for active players grew to 3.3 million in 2019. The sport grew during the COVID-19 pandemic. According to a survey by the Sport and Fitness Industry Association, pickleball grew by 21.3% in 2020, bringing the number to 4.8 million active players in America. At this growth rate, there will be 8 million players in a few years. The average player age is 41. Enterprise 2 has seen tremendous growth in pickleball. There are currently 2 courts behind Jug Brown Recreation Center. 7 days a week, the courts are reserved by 4 groups. Numbers from the Enterprise Recreation Department show an increase of 100% in the last 2 years. The previous activities director for EPR said that she received inquiries about the sport every single day. The current groups are busting at the seams. With 2 courts, 8 people can play at a time. And with up to 14 and more people showing up, wait time can be lengthy. Let's back up. What is pickleball? It's a game with a silly name that was invented in 1965 by 3 Washington State fathers trying to entertain bored children on summer vacation. Having limited equipment, they attempted to set up badminton, but no one can find a shuttlecock. They improvised with a plastic wiffle ball and ping pong paddles and lowered the badminton net. The family dog named Pickles kept chasing the ball, and thus was born the game's name. Today, the game is still played with a wiffle ball and short paddles on what resembles a tennis court. So back to pickleball and Enterprise and why we are here. Soon, the Jug Brown building will be coming down, and a new multi-purpose building will be built where 2 current courts are. Recreation Director Billy Powell has been working with us to implement 4 temporary courts at the tennis complex on Highway 167. The space does not meet the 30 feet wide by 60 feet long required dimensions, but we will make do because we love the sport so much. We were also told the 2024 multi-purpose building will include 6 indoor courts that will be shared with basketball and volleyball. We are grateful for that, but with the demand for basketball and volleyball courts, our time will be limited. Our mild climate allows us to play pickleball outdoors year-round. Thus, we ask for an outdoor facility. Pickleball is growing fast in Enterprise. It has no age, race, or personal economic boundaries. A racket and ball can cost $20 at Walmart. It is an excellent source of exercise And according to one source, the number of health benefits the game provides is a list of 20. But best of all, pickleball is fun. You make new friends. And we love the Fort Rucker soldiers and families that are in our groups. You see sons, mothers, everybody. Grandmother.
Grandfather.
All right. Okay, so we are asking for an outdoor pickleball complex and anticipating the continued growth of this sport. We're asking for 16 courts with fencing and lighting. For reference, Opelika has 24 courts, and Hoover's in the process of making their own facility right now. It takes 12 courts to be able to host an officially sanctioned pickleball tournament. Opelika is estimating or anticipating that their sanctioned tournament this year is going to bring in roughly around $2 million for their community. Like I said, Hoover's in the process of building their own complex. I spoke with one of the members of Parks and Rec, and this is what they told me to tell you. And they said that you don't want to miss the boat on this like they did, because they were literally getting calls about this every single day, probably to the point of ad nauseum, and just it was just too much. So being in the field of ministry, I've served a number of congregations, and apart from loving God and His Word and loving your neighbor as yourself, the best quality that I've seen in a good leader is the ability to be proactive instead of reactive. And I know things are getting a little messy at the courts right now, but I still feel like that you all are in a phase where you can be proactive about this before it gets out of hand. If we continue to grow, even adding 10 to 12 new players a year, it'll get to the point where it's unmanageable. I even received a message encouraging us not to bring in new guests to the sport, and we don't want it to become at a place where it's unmanageable. So I encourage you all to consider this. And it was once said that can anything good come out of Nazareth? And the response was, come and see. And so what is pickleball about? I encourage you all with the same response. Come and see.
Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Can I say something? If I'd have got the memo, I would have brought my pickleball racket. They didn't tell me.
So typically, council members will have an opportunity at the end of the meeting to respond. So if you want to stick around, I'm sure some of us may have some thoughts on that. So is anybody else here to address the council? Yes, sir. Please, I know who you are, Mr. Boland. Make sure everybody knows who you are.
Council, Todd Boland. I'm just back again. This journey for me has been, I was looking back at previous emails, started in October of last year, so going on 7 months for us trying to get our development off the ground. We see tonight on the agenda the consideration of an ordinance to directly affect what we had presented to you guys in the past, and we just feel for us, and we just ask that y'all reconsider a proposal that we have over to your attorney, Rick Rayner. It's just some ways that we hope to reach a compromise. As we shared from Scotty and everyone, the density from the start seemed to be the problem and the issue with our project, with it being over 400 residential homes. Since that time, we more than half the property off to where the 100 acres would remain the farming agricultural area that we were asked to help reduce the density. Just be 2 phases, 139 properties there on the front. It doesn't even come up to the fence line or encroach even on the VOR area that we had originally discussed with Fort Rooker to make sure we were clearing any of their area or jeopardizing anything there. We've also been in communication with the Waterboard, had a great conversation outside, and have in the past with Mr. Goolsby here and with you, Turner and Greg. Scotty, I got your thoughts as well on it. We know there's concern for the airport, but we feel with the rezoning of Tartan Pines and the development of the of the landing route across the street, that we are just kind of hopefully trying to achieve the same subdivision standard that has been approved so far. No one can recall of anyone that has been turned down. I've sat here through several meetings and see the rezoning, and I see the growth around stage fields and other areas, and I feel like with the noise contours, maybe future development of the airport and it being extended or turned or a crosswind or anything, leaving the back 100 acres and just rezoning the front to the TX3 would hopefully achieve a good compromise. Very nice conversation outside, was great. He's been aware of the proposal by us. As you know, we came to the city to ask to be annexed and zoned in, but now we're going to follow on an ordinance where you're going to mandate that. Whereas we were here with our hands wide open to come join you guys. Have no problem at all tapping into the water, into the sewer to provide revenue for the city. That's why all those features are out there. Biggest concern of Scotty was the county road issue. Barry's going to clarify. You only inherit what runs into the front of the subdivision area, talking maybe 0.2 of a mile, not the whole county road. The city already owns the Aviation Boulevard. They took over 622 when they did that extension and built the fire station there. So we just ask that y'all hopefully consider this in your options when you move forward with this ordinance this evening. We always appreciate your time and consideration. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Or is there anybody else here to address the council? Yes, sir.
My name is Lister Reeves. I wanted to talk to you about the airport ordinance just for a second. But first, I have a question, because this pickleball thing's got me kind of curious. Do you call yourselves pickleballers or pickleballies or what? Is there a name? Ballers? All right. All right. That's very interesting. I'm learning a lot about that tonight, but I wish y'all all the best. I'm a basketball guy, so I want the city to develop more basketball outdoor courts as well as indoor. So I'm a big proponent of that. But anyway, I want to take a moment, gentlemen, and Mr. Mayor and Councilman, on this airport ordinance because I'm a member of and attend High Point Church, and my understanding is this ordinance encompasses a radius of 2 miles around the airport. What I wanted to suggest and ask you, gentlemen, is I personally think 2 miles is too much of a radius to encompass for this ordinance, and I would really like for y'all to diligently consider reducing that radius. I am not under the understanding yet if it's a definite federal or state guideline that it has to be a 2 mile radius, but I'd like to see that reduced to perhaps maybe a 1/2 mile radius, because I see no need geographically and for a city of the size of Enterprise to go a full 2 miles out, because I just think that's way too much. I can understand the standards of FFA and wanting the adjacent properties to have limitations and so forth, but as far as going 2 miles out, I think that's just a little bit too much for the geography of a city like Enterprise. So with that in mind, I'd like for you to sit. Plus, I am very strongly a proponent of personal property rights, and I'm very strongly opposed to what I feel in our society at the federal and state levels of government beginning to take too much overreach into the personal lives and endeavors of citizens. And I want to encourage you as leaders of our community, please do not do something that encroaches upon the personal property rights of all citizens of Enterprise. I do not believe that's a direction that we want to go. We see too much of that at the federal level, and I certainly don't want that to happen at the state level, and I certainly don't want it to happen for a city like Enterprise. Do your due diligence, which I'm sure each one of you will do, and I appreciate that, but I'd like for you to consider those factors as you're making this decision about what to do with this airport ordinance. Thank you for your time. Appreciate all that you do for our community. God's blessings upon each of you, and may God give you wisdom and direction as you proceed forward with all the direction and all the decisions that need to be made for this city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves. Is there anybody else?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Ben Goldman. I'm an attorney with Hand, Darendal, Harrison Sale. This is unusual for me. I've represented 75 different governmental entities, including their utilities, development boards. So I'm usually sitting on the other side of the podium, working with local government. But I'm here tonight for Longleaf Properties. You've already heard from Mr. Boland. The ordinance that's before you tonight, I want to draw your attention and sort of frame what you're being asked to consider tonight. And that second whereas clause that again you've heard concern about. It was voiced from the podium earlier. It's been voiced from a local church this evening about that 2-mile reach. And I want to draw this in and let everybody hear what this ordinance actually says, which is, whereas the council finds that the encroachment near the airport of residential developments adjoining the airport property will cause danger to residents and the proliferation of noise complaints, which will inhibit or interfere with safe and efficient airport operations. And my 2 points about that would be, this finding, I think, goes again to sort of accent why this ordinance is not ready tonight. It's not ready because there's no evidence that's been brought forward. This is the sort of finding that might come about in a zoning ordinance that the Planning Commission would take up sitting as the airport board later on. And I think it shows how this process is loaded on the front end, specifically in response to this development that was receiving very favorable reviews early in the process from the city. And so I would like to say thank you to the council. We reached out through Mr. Cotter 2 weeks ago to ask that you not take unanimous consent for immediate consideration to take it up 2 weeks ago. The reason we made that request was because we wanted the opportunity, having tried a couple different approaches, to be sure that the council had all the options in front of it so it could make a decision before things might have the opportunity to go off the rails. And what I mean by that is we used the last 2 weeks to put together a proposal with 2 options, which you've heard Mr. Boland mention some of the key points in them, which is, for example, they've walked away from 112 acres of this property, limited it down to 72 acres that are on the front side, as he explained it in kind of its proximity to where the fence of the airport is, so that this isn't the sort of property that would be what you would be worried about, particularly in respect to the airport. But this property, this development has been before this city now since the fall. I feel like because of the good faith that they've taken to come forward, the ask is that I don't know if the council has seen this proposal yet. If you haven't, my ask is that you take time to see it, because this is a good faith effort as at least a starting point to say, we've heard your concerns, and Longleaf is trying to meet you at a place where it thinks it's answered all of them. And whether that is that you want them in the city or you want them to remain in the county, they put together a couple different options that you can give them direction on. So my request tonight would be twofold. It would be this. The first is that you table it for one more meeting, so that if you haven't seen this proposal, you have the opportunity to see it and to consider it and to discuss it. We haven't gotten a response, and if the ordinance is passed tonight, I'll understand that perhaps that is the response. But I think that there ought to be an opportunity to sit down and try to resolve it without an overreach in the process before the facts can really be developed. The second ask would be that under any circumstances at any point tonight or in the future, if you do decide to move forward with the ordinance, that you strike that second whereas clause, because there's simply no evidence before you that residential properties are a danger to the airport. And again, I want to put that in context. You essentially would be finding that a one-story building at lowered elevation is dangerous to your airport. So what will the impact be on your surrounding industrial developments at your airport? This could have a terrible economic impact if you make that finding based on no evidence early on, not just for this development, but it might have unintended consequences. So I would ask, there's no harm, again, in taking time to discuss the proposal, and have an opportunity to see if there can be some meeting of the minds, not in a contract or something like that. We recognize it's your legislative discretion down the road, but just to see if this is something that is beneficial to the city. We think it is. We think we've done the things that would address your concerns and make an asset. I don't know if we'll have a pickleball court at this property, but it's certainly a home for pickleball players. I do. I 100% know that with all my heart. And so it is exciting for everything that's going on in your city. And congratulations to your team. Congratulations for this. These are the kind of issues you want brought to you, where you have people asking to be here, asking to share resources, and that is exciting. We hope we can be a part of that, and we hope that is the spirit in which this is received. That beyond anything, I want you to hear tonight, Longleaf wants to work with you. This particular ordinance, the way it's written and presented on your table tonight, these findings really backs them into a corner. And I think if it is adopted tonight, it's going to make it very, very tough to sort of work things out as we move forward, although we will continue to try. But anyway, I appreciate your time, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Goldman. All right. Is there anybody else who wishes to address the council? Anybody else? All right, we will move on with our agenda items. We'll give the room a minute to clear.
Thank you.
Oh boy. Got some fans.
All right, so let's try to get on with the meeting. Our next item is staff reports. Do we have any staff reports that we were not able to get in work session? Yep. Yes, sir.
I apologize for not getting with Beverly or Jonathan to get this on the agenda. I have just an agreement I need to get authority for the mayor to sign related to alleged overpayment involving USA and their business license tax. We got it worked out. I just need, if y'all could, please, just to authorize the mayor by motion to execute that agreement, and we can get that taken care of.
All right. You hear the request from our city attorney. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. Any other staff reports? Christina?
Hey, good evening, everybody. I just wanted to give you guys an update on the retiree bonus bill that passed through the legislature. It passed through the legislature at the end of March and was signed by the governor on April 4th, and enacted as Act 2022-229. What does that mean for us as a city? Basically, what that bill includes is that it would give a $2 per month of service increase for retirees if the city so chooses to pass that. We do not have that information information right now. That'll be forthcoming from the retirement system. And then we will have until August to make a decision as a city as to whether or not the city would like to pass that retiree bonus on to the retirees. We will get that information hopefully within the next month or so. I've checked with the retirement system. We do not have those numbers yet, but as soon as I get those numbers, I will pass that information on to you all so that you will have enough time to make an informed decision about it. We will have until August to make that decision, and then we can either choose to pay it in a lump sum payment or include it in our rates in fiscal year 2023. And then that, if it's passed, it will be paid out in October to the retirees.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other staff reports? All right. See no other staff reports, so we'll move on to old business. So this is to review and consider Ordinance 04-0522A, which is to establish Airport Zoning Commission. So I'll now call for consideration of Ordinance 04-0522A, establishing an Airport Zoning Commission, which will be the Enterprise Planning Commission, to engage in and make recommendations as to the zoning rules and regulations, including the setting of initial zoning within 2 miles of the Enterprise Municipal Airport. It is the ordinance's intent to establish the mechanisms for such zoning, and the council will await further recommendations of the Planning Commission. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. This ordinance that we introduced last meeting, we discussed at length in the work session before. Is there any further discussion?
Mr. President.
Yes, ma'am.
I know we discussed in the work session about this 2 miles. And the notes I wrote that said that is the law that I think Rainer said is not negotiable for 2. Is that correct, Rainer?
So Rainer, would you mind approaching and, for the benefit of everybody, getting everybody on the same page there?
I'll repeat what I said at the work session. The state legislature didn't give us a choice in the language of the statute. It doesn't say we can go up to 2 miles or below 2 miles. It says within 2 miles. It could be read as unfortunate, but that's what sometimes we get from the state legislatures, and that's what we got. So, might it be preferable for there to be less? Might it be preferable for there to be more? I guess some people could argue one way or the other, but that's what we're left with.
But, after that jurisdiction is established, the actual land use within that jurisdiction could be more or less restrictive based on where it lands and its how it's situated relative to the airport, either by distance or
Correct.
Perpendicular to airflow. Any standard which the Airport Planning Commission comes up with, right?
That's exactly right, that they would recommend to you.
Okay. What I've got a question, something that came up from Mr. Goldman's comments. So this the second whereas clause, which I'll just read that so everybody's on the same page. The second whereas clause is whereas council finds that encroachment near the airport of residential developments adjoining the airport property will cause dangers to residents and the proliferation of noise complaints, which will inhibit or interfere with safe and efficient airport operations. So I guess first maybe give us a,
Yeah, sure.
we read whereases all the time, but what, I don't recall ever arguing over what the effect of those whereases is going forward.
So a couple of things. I know Mr. Goldman, who seems like a reasonable fellow, is not from here, and I don't know if this may be the first time he's ever been to Enterprise. But 2 things. One is, of course, encroachment onto any airport, particularly a high-density residential development, is certainly something that you don't have to be an expert in aviation and safety and issues concerning those to know that that's an issue. The second thing is, from being from Enterprise that unfortunately
noise complaints are continuously reported, and our staff here every week is bombarded by noise complaints at the airport. I hope nobody would ever make a noise complaint as to a Fort Rucker helicopter, but unfortunately, we have some people who do that, and that's as to the airport and other airfields in our city. So these things, I think Mr. Goldman in good faith made his argument, but when you're here and you live here and you experience what we've experienced here, it's easy to see why that whereas is in there.
So I guess the concern is, will it potentially, to his point, have unintended consequences of affecting future land uses that may be more preferable to staff, council, future councils, such as industrial use?
Again, you're going to be in control of that. When recommendations are made as to zoning, you're going to have the say on that. And so my experience with you has been, in fact, if you look at the record of this council on rezones, I would say you're as pro-property right, personal property right as anybody I've seen. And I would expect that to continue to be when you consider the various zoning that's going to come out of recommendations from the Planning Commission. Glad to answer any other questions.
Does anybody have any other questions for Rainer while he's up here?
And speaking of this council being pro-property rights, and I do feel that we are, what is the effect on this? We're not all going to be here forever. And so what if we get a council that's not pro-property rights? How does that affect?
Well, I can only say this. I think in Enterprise, Alabama, if you have a council that's not much pro-property rights, they won't be in office long. That's the first thing. Second thing is, the council, any council, in the future, can always change something that this council does. You have to look at what's the best interest of the city right now with an eye toward, yes, anything could happen in the future. But, as it exists right now, is this in the best interest of the city and the citizens? So I guess you could say in everything you do, another council could undo it or be more restrictive, what have you. But I don't think, my experience is that's something that y'all look at, but you make determination right now what's in the best interest of this.
So in other words, there'd be nothing we could do tonight or at some future meeting to prevent the establishment of an airport authority. Only the state legislature could do that.
That's right. In other words, all you're doing is enacting what the state legislature says you can act. This is not something that you can just pull out of the air. It's got to be authorized by the state legislature.
So along those same lines, it does feel like there's a little bit of confusion of what we're doing tonight. What we're doing, we're not addressing any specific developments. We're not addressing any proposed. Now that to Mr. Boland and Mr. Goldman's point, I do think these proposals have been presented. So what they're asking us to hold nothing we would do here tonight. What would that do to our ability to continue to compromise with them on their development?
I don't think it would, and I think that we need to be open to discussions with Mr. Goldman and Mr. Boland. My experience with both of those individuals is that they're acting in good faith, and I believe they're reasonably intentioned, and I think we should keep a wide open door to discuss what can be done to, if anything, to come to some sort of meeting of the minds.
So having not seen the proposal myself, if such an agreement might be reached at some point that Planning Commission does come back and say we recommend annex a new proposal being annexed into the city limits of Enterprise, and this basically would have no effect on anything that's annexed. Is that correct?
Because then we would be under standard zoning.
At this point in time, as the president said, what you do tonight will not affect if we ultimately can get to some point of mutual understanding between us, between the city and Mr. Boland. And I just want to repeat again, it's not been my experience that I've heard a lot of anti-development by this council, and I don't expect it will be in the future. So I think we need to keep the door open, and I hope Mr. Boland and Mr. Goldman understand that that's, regardless of what the council does, that's what I would recommend that we do.
Does anybody have any questions for Rayner? If nobody objects, I would like to ask Mr. Goldman if he'd be willing to come forward. Everybody okay with that? So, to Greg's point, he hadn't reviewed the proposal. So, let's just say we look at this proposal. We have the benefit of studying it and discussing it, and we decide that a compromise, that the compromise that's presented. I mean, I've talked to Mr. Boland at length about it, and I've indicated from day one that personally, I can't speak for anybody but myself, would entertain a compromise. So, what are you claiming we would potentially be doing tonight? Forget the second whereas, but what are you claiming we'd be doing tonight that would prevent us from annexing in and working out this compromise?
I really am glad you asked that question. So I sat in on the work session immediately before this, and I know that y'all asked one of the important questions, which was, if you adopt this tonight, how quickly are you going to have zoning? And the answer was, we think that we could have a draft for the Planning Commission to review in a week. And so then, okay, well, if you got a draft, and a draft that obviously they have some confidence that they're going to be in a position to recommend to the council, how quickly can you do it? And, from the date of the application, you got 30 days, and then you would have 15 days of notice within that period. So that's where that 30-day minimum.
But doesn't all that have to happen anyways with a compromise?
Where I think that the opportunity to have at least the council review and consider over the next 2 weeks is that then when you have a draft, it could be reflective of the council's intent and what the council thought was reasonable, as opposed to advertising something, rushing to get it out in a week before you meet again next. Having that go to Planning Commission ASAP, and then have that circulated. So my thought, and again, and I know, and I appreciate what was said about being pro-development, but the fact is this particular development has been turned down, and I think the fact that y'all are pro-development shows that and I find that Mr. Cotter has been very helpful in talking with him. So is both sides, you hear the words good faith, because that's really, I love working with people that you can sit down and have a conversation with. And I feel like that's where we are. That's what we're trying to do. So that's our request, is to do that before the process gets going to such a speed that it's hard for the council to keep control of it before it comes back. And as you've seen, like with them, if it's not perfect when it comes to you, you have to start the process all over again. So I think there's an efficiency in waiting for that, and I think it would be more reflective of whatever it is that you decide. If you decide to move forward, then you decide to move forward. And I do think also the fact that that's 2 miles. Think about all of the different types of development that you have within those 2 miles. And it is unusual to kind of talk about a whereas clause. I don't ever remember having come and really had to debate one before, but it's limited to residential developments. And so I do think that to have a pause and make sure that as you sort of launch this process, that it is ready to accomplish what it is that you want to do. And I think y'all may be heading somewhere that you're comfortable with. My only thought was, if it were me, I would want to know what the offer was before I set that in motion, because it might be something you like better. And we sent the proposal over last week in the hopes that we might have it all worked out before tonight. But I understand there's that saying about moving at the speed of government. It's hard, and there certainly is. When we're talking about having a lot of people to see it, it just takes time. But we're ready to move as fast as the city can. We don't want to slow you down unnecessarily, but we've tried to do our part to get this proposal out and to get direction on how we can proceed and work with y'all.
Shouldn't that proposal go to the planning commission first? Barry? I mean, that's the process. And then it would come back up to us with their recommendation or whatever.
If we were at a point where we wanted to act unilaterally, we would jump back in with the planning commission. When I got pulled in on this, when this was on your agenda a couple weeks ago, they had tried a process where they were requesting to be annexed in. That wasn't approved. So then there was if they
and that
don't
was
want,
on the original
that was
proposal.
on the original
Okay,
proposal.
so there's difference.
And so there is a difference, and I think that is what I have tried to do in maybe kind of pumping the brakes on both sides. On both sides is to say, look, if the council needs to clearly hear what your best offer is, right, or at least in good faith, come forward and show them how you can try to respond to their complaints or their concerns. That's what we've tried to do in these two options. And option one that's in there involves you annexing, you using your zoning, you using your utilities, you using your building codes on a 139 property development that's on a much more limited piece, although the lots are bigger. The lot density actually goes from 2.3 houses per acre to 1.9 houses per acre. So it's not just a reduction. It's not just that they've eliminated that phase 3 from what they were asking, because originally this was 400 houses, but they have actually enlarged those lots. So there is a lot that's happening there that I think you'll be pleased if you get the opportunity to see it. And it may even be that when we sit down, we may find that there may be a particular type of, but I think ultimately you're probably going to want them in the city, just based on that question.
Because that new proposal still needs to go to the planning commission. Let them make that decision.
If the council indicated that was how to proceed, then we will do that. Our ask in there are some additional things that we are asking the city to help us with, just given how we've gotten here, really that are within the control of the administration in terms of timing. So I know as a city attorney for my own cities, you can slow run a notice, which is, okay, we get our petition in. So now we have to wait at least 30 days for the meeting to be set, and we have to wait 15 days for the notice. All right, so now I'm going to hold my meeting for the planning commission, and then now I'm going to start the notice time before the city council. Our request is simply that if we all have some idea that we're working together in good faith, we run those notices at the same time where we can get through this process. And I think those are nothing that costs anybody anything, just simply to try to get on the same page.
Yeah, one thing that I guess I'm having trouble with, and just like from a few weeks ago, which I've had this discussion with Mr. Sims and Mr. Poland, is that like a few weeks ago we had an ordinance or a resolution, whatever it was at the time, and that's what we were discussing. So tonight, what we are discussing, and during the debate of that ordinance, there were a lot of there's a lot of information that was coming at us of, we'll do this, we'll do that. But then when you looked at the black and the white of the resolution, the council ultimately decided they couldn't get behind it. I don't think the council said, we're not in agreement with what you're saying here tonight. And so fast forward to tonight, what we're debating is whether Enterprise City Council thinks it's a good idea or not to stand up an airport planning commission and to regulate the property that's adjacent to, and unfortunately, at least unfortunately in my opinion, up to 2 miles. I think that's way too far personally. We're being told, by staff, by our attorney, that we got to go 2 miles. So it doesn't sound like anybody's really debating that point. But tonight, what we're trying to debate and decide as a council is, do we think it's a good idea to have some control over the land, or actually just to simply take advantage of the statute that the state legislature gave us to chart the future of our airport and to protect an asset that we only have one of and we're not going to be able to move. I mean, where do you think that's what we're discussing tonight, not whether the density should be 139 lots or TH3 or R75A or 4 stories or 2 stories. I don't see anything in the language of the ordinance that addresses any of that.
I hope you've heard, I am not debating with you tonight whether you ever implement an airport zoning authority. I don't think any of my comments have been to that point. I think that there is a second choice that is involved in that, which is also, when do we implement our airport zoning authority? And do we do it here in the middle of this process before we've really heard all the options, or do we wait 2 weeks and then still exercise our authority if we don't like what we've heard, or at least so that by the time you get back here, you've already had your staff who said, we're ready to present a draft. So the reality is that I do understand this creates an authority. Because of this odd whereas clause, it also makes a finding that I would ask for an amendment whenever you do consider it, just to strike it. It's certainly not in the statutes. I mean, there's a lot of that language that comes from it. That one does not. It's not required to create an airport authority. So, but in either case, to me, and I hope you hear, I'm not even really debating with you tonight the issue of whether to create. That certainly is something that you will ultimately have to decide. It's in front of you. My request is that you just simply do it with all the information. And I feel like as a part of that, what we've come to do is to ask that you have the chance to see how this fits in to the plan that's already underway, and decide if that's what you want your staff to do. So that's our ask.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Goldman?
Is there any, I guess, detriment as far as time is concerned if we do table it?
I think we'd have to defer to staff on that. I have asked that, actually. So Barry or Jonathan or both, would y'all mind answering Ms. Richards?
And while he's on the way, the reason I'm particularly asking that is because one of the things that we have also done is try to be truly consistent in our decision making. And we often, I quote Turner saying, we want to get it right. We want to get it right. I think we should do the same here, just like we would anything else. And if it comes back to that's what we decide, that's what we do, but I just want to get those questions answered so I can.
So you asked about the urgency of it. I won't tell you that it's urgent to the point that the sky is going to fall or something bad will happen. But we have other developers and other projects that are within that 2-mile jurisdiction that don't fall within the city limits that are currently being hindered from progressing because we do not have an authority to address their concerns too. So we have just given our intent as a city to the county commission saying we would like to exercise our authority. But we do not have an authoritative body to hear those petitions from developers outside the county. So we have other subdivisions or homes or builders that are trying to do projects right now that the county is deferring them to the city. And so we're taking those calls now. So I would just say that, the longer we wait to establish an authority, it is, longer that the authority would be able to take up those, concerns from other developers.
That answer your question, Sonia? Rainer, Mr. Goldman brought up something that, so, I mean, if we pass this tonight and we decided we didn't like that second whereas clause, could we simply amend the ordinance?
Sure, I mean, you can pass this and repeal it. I mean, that's.
So if we find it is problematic, then
Sure, absolutely.
Then we can certainly.
Absolutely.
So we, I mean, I think we can, at least in my mind, I don't think there's a strong argument for allowing the second whereas clause to be fatal to the ordinance. So I think, what we've got to decide is there a timing issue? And, I mean,
I'm just
Scott,
saying we can't keep kicking this can down.
Greg, your thoughts on
I'll be honest with you, tonight I think I have more questions than I have answers. And as Ms. Ritz said earlier, I think we're very careful to get things right, and we have been as a council. I guess, if this was within the city limits, it wouldn't be any question because we would already have the authority to do this. I get the need to protect the airport. I totally get that. Also have to be very careful that we don't take authority that we may not need to take. And that's a question I guess I've still got in my mind that I'm not sure I've got completely answered. I see part of the answer, but I don't know that I've got the complete answer. If we were to have a development close by the airport that we did decide to annex in and properly zone it, then we would have the authority over that anyway. But if something isn't annexed and zoned in there and we don't have this authority, then I guess it could be a detriment to the airport potentially.
Yeah, and of course you could have a development that's not contiguous with the city that even if they wanted to annex in and be zoned, we would not be able to, right, Rainer? No. For an annexation to occur, absent legislative action, the development's got to be contiguous with the current corporate limits. Yeah. So, but this gives us some planning. This gives us planning jurisdiction to non-contiguous properties and developments. Yeah. So I think we've got to decide: do we need that authority that the state has given us? The state's given us that authority. Well, right now we've got to assert that authority, and that's what tonight is about. Eugene, your thoughts?
Well, the fact that this is going to be holding up other possible developers other than Mr. Boland's clients, and if we pass this tonight and it's not going to hinder us looking at his new proposal, I hate to put this off to another 2 weeks.
Sonia, your thoughts?
Well, I don't mean this negatively, but these proposals come up when we getting ready to vote for an ordinance. And that was the same question I asked the last time that we were here. This is what we're here to address. Then there's a whole bunch of other stuff that comes up, which I I wouldn't mind listening to. But I have not seen a proposal, so that's troubling. But Mr. Boland did make a point about that whereas clause, and I'm not quoting you, Mr. Boland. I mean, Mr. Goldman. There's no evidence that the residential properties are dangerous to the airport. I think we pointed out it would be annoying to an extent with complaints, but I think dangerous. I don't know if that's proper or why we chose that to say. I don't know. It's just I'm not just sure. I'll just say that.
And that was my comment earlier, that any proposal, whether it be, still has to come to the planning commission. It's not going to stop them from doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think their desire would be to negotiate that, outside of an airport planning commission or our current enterprise planning commission. I think their desire is to do that, basically negotiate the development and allow the county to approve it. I mean, that's y'all's desire, right? I mean, if we're being,
do we do that?
I want us all on the same page here. What the actual?
Then we do that for every proposal, then every individual proposal.
And see, this is why it's difficult to negotiate, all the points in a proposal like this. But
to be clear, we're debating whether to stand up an airport zoning commission or not.
No, I understand. But to your point, one option was to remain in the county, let the county handle it, and you simply provide, your sewer will serve letter. But we've offered to still do the other things that we think would be consistent with what we would be required if they were in enterprise. The other option involves an annexation into the city where you get to add it to your ad valorem and everything else. So both of those proposals are on the table. I want to be clear, both of them are offered, and so it is not. There's no end run around trying to hide in the county or anything like that.
Yeah,
quite to the contrary.
I'm sorry
we're saying we're happy to come in either way.
All right, thank you. So, my thoughts are is that, again, we're here to primarily consider, is it in the city's best interest to regulate the property surrounding the airport? If we do not do this, can we envision a threat to the future development of our airport? In my mind, that's what we're here to decide. And the language of the ordinance is very vanilla. It is right, Rainer. I mean, it's copy and paste from the statute, maybe other than some of these whereases. All we're doing is asserting our authority to protect our airport with land use around the airport. I can't imagine that changing over the next 2 weeks. Our need to do that. If you feel that tonight, if you're going to feel that in 2 weeks, I'm in support of moving forward with it, so that we can get on with clarity of where y'all are with yours, so everybody else that we're inadvertently, unfortunately affecting can move on with clarity, and so we don't move at the speed of government. So we've had 2 weeks of this, and the language has been the same. I don't understand how this ordinance is fatal to y'all's request to work out one of these options. I don't see that. I'm certainly interested in y'all's thoughts on it. I mean, I think we know where the interested parties' thoughts are on it. So we've got a motion on the floor. If we were to table, we have a motion in a second. If somebody were wanting to table this, my understanding is we would need a motion to table. That be proper, Rayner? So, is there a motion to table? I do not hear a motion to table, so, and I do not hear any further discussion, but I will ask one more time, is there any further discussion? So we've got a motion on the floor to adopt ordinance 040522A. It's been properly seconded and discussed. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we'll move on to new business. I will introduce and call for consideration of requests from City Engineer, Public Works Director Barry Mott to seek bids for all phases of the 2021 CDBG demolition project. Bids will be advertised and conducted by Ewing, Connor and Associates and will take place in phases. Up to 45 houses will be demolished as part of this process, with each demolition phase estimated to have 5 to 10 properties. CDBG grant funds will be used to pay for the cost of this work. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now consider a request of permission to seek bids for asbestos inspection and testing regarding the CDBG demo project. I'll introduce and call for consideration of a request from City Engineer, Public Works Director Barry Mott to seek bids and procure asbestos inspection and testing services for properties slated for demolition and clearance under the 2021 CDBG demolition project. Bids will be advertised and conducted by Ewing, Connor and Associates. The cost of these services will be paid for with CDBG grant funds. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now request permission to seek bids regarding asbestos abatement at MN Jug Brown Recreation Center. I introduce and call for consideration of a request from City Engineer, Public Works Director Barry Mott to seek bids for asbestos abatement related to the demolition of the MN Jug Brown Recreation Center. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt this request. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I'll now call for a motion to appoint the city's voting delegate for the Alabama League of Municipalities Annual Convention in Tuscaloosa, May 11th through 14th, 2022.
I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Greg Paget as the city's voting delegate for the Alabama League of Municipalities Annual Convention in Tuscaloosa in May 11th, 14th, 2022.
All right, council, you hear the motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Mayor, you got a report for us? Uh-oh. Sonia?
I definitely ditto that. All our pickleballers are gone, so appreciate them coming. And oh well, not all. Glad that you all came out tonight. And I guess concerning the ordinance, I know we ask a lot of questions, and Rainer, I guess thanks for answering all of that, because I know personally I like to stick to what it is that what is actually on our agenda for us to take up, and sometimes additional things get brought in or whatever. So thank you all for bearing with us with that tonight. Y'all have a good night.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming too, and I'm surely glad that we had the occasion to address our basketball team being state champs, and really appreciate that and glad we win. Thank you for coming.
Greg?
I think it's all been said. Thanks for coming.
Scotty?
Thank you for coming. Thank you everybody online for watching. And again, thank you to all our city workers that were acknowledged tonight. We have the best city workers in the entire state of Alabama and the nation. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, thank everybody for coming. I said it last time. I'll continue to say it. These property rights, property land use issues I lose more sleep over these than anything else. I really, really struggle with these things, but I do think that that we're limited in our abilities. We can't just go do what we want to do. We've got to follow state law, and so unfortunately, there are some unintended consequences of this. But I think personally, I think each of you did your job, did your due diligence, asked the questions, and we've made a decision that I think we all feel like we made the right decision. So have a good night. Thank you.